So, Bryce, tell me a little bit about your band.
Sure. Yeah. So my band is called Amble, and it's kind of a slowly grown band over many years. Essentially, it's myself and our drummer Brandon are kind of the core of the band, and we started playing together. It was 20, 25 years ago, maybe even now, as probably 14, 15-year olds out of high school. We played in bunch of bands together. A good stretch of that was with like a really good core group of friends, and that band went through a few iterations. And as that band was kind of wrapping things up, more going on just like a hiatus, like a long hiatus, Brandon and I thought, at that time I was just a support guitar player or lead guitar player, but we thought, hey, I have some songs, some material that I've written, and so why not just try to roll all of these years of experience and everything that we've been doing just into a new project altogether? And uh, it's kind of, you know, a whole new experience, at least for me, in the environment of being the lead singer instead of being just like a support member in the band. Um, so that's where we kind of came up with, like, let's just record something. We didn't have a name or anything at that point. We didn't know if it was just going to be called Bryce's band or something like that. Um, and we started tracking our first EP, and that process just took a while. We were doing it different than we had done before. We were trying to do a lot of it ourselves, kind of DIY production. And over the course of making that first EP, we landed on the name Amble, and that was just kind of a gathering of thoughts. Like, I think both of us had like a running notes thing on our phone where just if we heard a phrase or heard an interesting idea, we would jot it down, and maybe that's a song, maybe that's a name for the band or something like that. Um, and Amble Haunt was like these two. I remember looking at a list, and there was two different phrases that had both those words in it, and I thought, oh well, maybe these two words go together, and it just kind of clicked at that point, and the name just felt right. And there's plenty. I don't know what you want me to talk about in detail at the moment, but there's plenty that, like, after finding the name, I've discovered what it means a lot more, um, which is just always a fun thing to do as an artist, and to kind of discover more within your own work. Um, but as of right now, Amble Haunt is a four-piece rock band, and we're getting ready to, over the course of this summer, we're going to be releasing a bunch of new material leading up to our album, which is coming out in August.
But they're very exciting. You guys have some good music.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. So, who would you want to go to? Who would you want to tour with if you got the chance to tour with somebody?
Ugh. There are three bands that come to mind right off the bat. And I think I speak for Brandon too when I say this, that a band called Thrice has been a huge influence on us ever since those early days of playing music. Um, Another band, Manchester Orchestra. Uh, and then the producer on this album that we just made plays in a band called All Get Out. And uh, honestly, those three bands are kind of like the top three for both of us right now. I think we love everything that those bands do and how they go about doing it, how they go about handling their career. So, uh, aside from just like music stuff, it's like I think those are good role models, or bands to kind of look up to and see, like, well, what are those guys doing? And what's kind of cool about those three bands is they're spread out in this kind of, you know, Thrice has a lot of history. They have a lot of uh, genre change kind of in their history, but they're still going strong. Manchester is kind of like, I feel like they're in the middle of that process where they're still discovering these new twists on their sound. All Get Out and is where we kind of got the whole like self-producing thing from, because that's what they did, and there's just a lot to learn from all of them.
Do you, I see you have a lot of music stuff behind you. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's this is my basement, or as sometimes my girlfriend calls it, the dungeon. But it's it's kind of like a, you know, it has to be part of the deal. When I'm looking for a place to live, I got to have a place to put music equipment and ideally have band practices. And so, yeah, this when we were looking at this house, it was perfect. This is a cool room, and I think we've already done a lot with it. Um, if you go to our YouTube channel, you can see at least two, no, three music videos that we've shot in this very room with just different concepts, you know, different approaches to making a music video. One of them's a lyric video, or actually a couple of them have lyric elements. The most recent one that we just put out is more of like a special effect kind of video where we're like duplicating ourselves around the room. So the camera is just kind of in the middle of the room, and it's just kind of like slowly spinning, and then using some editing magic, we're able to like replicate ourselves at different instruments around the room and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of it's my little den down here.
Now, do you have a favorite instrument you like to use when you're in the studio recording a song?
Yeah, obviously an electric guitar is kind of where most of my ideas start. Um, and as far as electric guitars go, I like Telecasters. They're kind of my go-to. But if you can see over my shoulder over here, that's a Fender Jaguar. That's a friend of mine. Belongs to him, and he's kind of just let it stay here for the last little, I don't know, few months. And I've really been liking playing on that one. Um, when we went and recorded this album that we did at last fall, that studio had all kinds of cool guitars, like older stuff that has character just worn into it. And I kind of discovered how great that stuff is, to have an instrument that's been played for 50 years already by countless hands before you, and then you pick it up, and in that moment, you know, you're playing something that you've written, but it brings like a whole new life to it by hearing it through this new voice, which is also an old voice. It's really cool, and so that kind of opened my eyes up to, I don't have to just use my one Telecaster, you know, for everything. Like, in fact, I can do one part of the song with that, and then I'll pick up this other guitar maybe that has a character, has a sound to it, and that's like the second guitar sound. And then you pick up a really old acoustic that has a cool voice to it too, and you layer up on top of one of those other guitar parts, and all of a sudden it just becomes much more than you could have even pictured it being.
Yeah. So, so is this your first time playing for a benefit?
Yeah, with this band, yes. But like I was kind of explaining, our history of being in bands has always kind of revolved around benefit type stuff. It's always been a part of our history. I remember as maybe like sophomores in the high school, for a school project, we did, you know, like a local concert to raise money for Outreach International, who they go out into the world and they help create sustainable living situations for people all over the place. Um, Fast forward a little beyond that, in 2006, we had a really good friend named Jesse Ross, and he went missing on a school trip in Chicago. He was, I think, a freshman in college at that point, and um, he hasn't been found since. And so we had teamed up with his family, and we did a series of benefits from the time that he went missing. So actually, I mean, maybe a year after is when the first one happened around 2007. And then we did a bunch of years in a row where we had his nickname was Opie. So we called him Opie Fest. We would do that every fall. And then that eventually turned into doing like a 10-day Midwest tour for missing persons awareness. And so we, over the course of, I think the summer of like 2010, we went out and just played wherever would let us, and we would put up, of course, Jesse's story and his information about his case, but then we would also highlight other local missing individuals from those areas. We got a bit of news coverage from every spot that we went to and stuff like that. Just tried to raise the awareness. It's maybe less of like a benefit in that we weren't raising money to go directly to something, but we were trying to raise awareness of this issue that people go missing, and especially if they're over the age of 18, law enforcement often looks at them as just their first thought is it's a runaway, and then their next thought is, well, it's maybe they're an adult and they just don't want to be found, or it's really sad sometimes what the families of missing individuals go through and just trying to get the case to be taken seriously. So that was the whole goal with that tour and those efforts that we've done there. And it's I don't know how to put it other than it's just always been a part of us that we're willing to like throw our thing in with a cause and let's do something about it. Let's raise money. Let's raise awareness. Currently, at the moment, aside from your event, which we should definitely highlight and talk about,
Yeah.
we have a friend who was injured in a car accident 2 years ago, spinal injury, and so we're currently, it's really his idea, and I'm just saying like, hey, I'm gonna help however I can, whether that's music or creating video promotion or something like that. But he wants to do an event to raise money and awareness for accessible disc golf courses, because he was a big disc golfer before his injury. And so we're trying to find a place, find a date, find sponsorship, stuff like that. But yeah, like again, when he brought that idea forward, we said, oh, absolutely, this sounds like something that would be really fun to be a part of.
Yeah. I like doing benefits. It's fun. It's fun supporting
Yeah,
everybody else that needs it.
yeah. I mean, there's just something different about doing a benefit effort versus doing you're just tooting your own horn about your own show and your own band and stuff like that. There's something about saying, hey, like we're doing this, but it's to shine this light on this subject. And yeah, I guess maybe some people have a different opinion about it, but I always have just thought like you always, as best you can, you always say yes to it.
Mm-hmm. And I've done a couple of great ones. I did one for Jeff Buckley with his team when they came to Kansas City.
Wow,
Um, and let's see what else I did with. Oh, I did one for VH1 Save the Music Foundation a couple of years ago.
nice.
Um, and just some other ones, Haiti, and that was
Yeah,
when at the Riot Room at one point when it was still
yeah,
available.
yeah. We did the Riot Room many times back in the day.
It was a great venue. Very small, but it was
Yeah,
all right.
yeah. It had an aura about it.
Who would you want to like write a song with if you got the chance to?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a hard question. Of course, my mind goes to those three bands that I mentioned. Any of the lead guys, of course, in that would be incredible too. But I think something that's kind of cool about those bands is oftentimes you have your lead guy, and then you look at the other members in the band and what they bring to the sound, and those are sometimes equally as important to creating the identity of that band. And so when I think about, say, Thrice, yeah, Dustin, the lead singer, would be great to write a song with. It'd also be incredibly cool to write with Tepe, the guitar player. Um, or, and these two I think of as a pair because they're brothers, the uh, Eddie and Riley Breckenridge, who are the bass and drum section for Thrice. Like, again, imagining having an idea and just hearing what elements somebody like that, like a mind like that, would bring to your thing sounds exciting to me. As much as like sitting down and hashing out lyrics or chords or something with like the songwriter, hearing what other elements could support your idea and how does that change your idea. I think that would actually be really cool. Um, the same over on the Manchester Orchestra side. The Robert, who's the lead guitar player over there, he produces a lot of bands and he does a lot of this kind of stuff. And I got to meet him at one point through a friend of mine, and the ease that that conversation had, and there was no pretentiousness or stuff like that. That honestly, he's a guy that just, now that I'm talking through it, he might be my pick. Robert from Manchester Orchestra would be pretty cool.
Have you have you met anybody from Kansas City that is like a musician, or have you played with them before?
Yeah. So like kind of the time in between my band's history, um, I joined up and played guitar for a band called Madison Ward and the Mama Bear, and they, at the time, were out touring a whole lot, and so I just went on the road with them as like a guitar player, electric guitar player, and that, I mean, Madison is now one of my, best friends. He and I see each other sometimes more than I see like the other guys in this band, and so as far as Kansas City-based musicians and all that stuff, both Madison and Ruth are like my best buds. I don't know how else to put it. Like I really love them as people and as musicians, and their approach to music is very unique, um, very honest and authentic. And I think that that's super valuable in making friends in music. Like, are you just on the same wavelength with them? And that's the wavelength that I resonate with. It's like these are real people who aren't bringing their ego first into the relationship or the writing session or any of that kind of stuff. Um, yeah. Through Madison, I've met quite a few other like notable Kansas City folks. Um, yeah, Billy Brimblecombe, who runs the Steps of Faith Foundation, and they do an event called Thunder Gong every year, which is a big benefit for individuals who need prosthetic limbs that don't have the insurance coverage for it. And so, again, through Billy, you meet, because Billy's a drummer and has been in a lot of, very successful bands from this area, but he's still based here. And then through him, you meet some other folks that you're just like, I had no idea that, you know, I haven't personally met these guys yet, but he's good friends with like the Get Up Kids and stuff like that. And yeah, you just realize like they say, oh, it's a small world after all when you start meeting folks and putting it together, and it sure feels like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Who is your big influence?
Um, yeah, I mean those bands that I've mentioned, I'm kind of a weird music person in that for as much as I do music and enjoy it and have like really I dive head first into it, I'm not like I know everybody's albums and I know every song and everything like that. Those bands that I've talked about, I definitely know them like front to back, discographies and all. Um, then outside of it, it's like I know this is a super cliche thing to say, but I'm a song person. So it's like if I just hear a song that works for me from a given artist, then I look it up and I add it to my library, and it just becomes part of my repertoire of listening material and stuff. So as far as who I would, yeah, like say is my big influence, probably of that group, Dustin from Thrice as a songwriter, the kinds of choices he makes as a songwriter, the lyrical content that he has decided to focus on. It's, it's the depth that I enjoy with music. It's not surface level stuff. It's philosophy in music form, and that's what matters to me. I think about the experience of making music is that you're saying something that is a part of like your deeper self, and I feel like he does it very eloquently, very um forceful isn't the right word. There's a lot of strength behind it, but there's a lot of grace and eloquence behind it too.
What's it like? What's your process of writing a song?
So this is I'm glad we got here because this is actually where I've like discovered the deeper meaning of the name Amble Haunt. At first, I just I gravitated towards those words because they, when you're picking a band name or stuff like that, you have to think about SEO, right? Like search engine optimization. How are people going to find your band easily, and are you going to get confused with other stuff on the internet? And so those two names, I was like, are those words? I've never seen that put together into a name, and I looked around and couldn't find anything. So I was like, that's a great first step. Um, but as far as the connection to process, I am a very slow songwriter. I come up with an initial idea, and it sometimes sits there for, I'm not kidding, a decade. And that's how a lot of the stuff off of the EP that we have out right now, almost all of those songs were that old. About half the material off this new one that we just did are around that old. And at least like the beginning idea of it. Like I come up with the riff and I come up with a verse one and a chorus, and then maybe I just leave it that way for a while because I don't know at that time. And this is something I'm just working on with myself on like being a more um, intentional songwriter, not letting an idea just sit out there for too long. But at the same time, I kind of feel like it is my process of I'm gonna come up with the idea. I'm gonna let it stew for a while. Maybe it's gonna go through a change or two uh, before it actually finds some sort of a final form. So amble hunt to me is like is my process. It's a slow meandering kind of amble, but it's a haunting element that won't leave you alone. It's always circling your head, or it's like bugging you to pay attention to it. And so amble hunt was just kind of like the perfect pairing of ideas that gets that across for me. Feel like it just it put my songwriting into the name of the band. And I don't always want to be that way. And in fact, I'm working on like writing faster and getting away from it. But I think that concept still applies in that um, these, like what I was talking about with one of the previous questions here, that those depths of um, meaning in lyrics and stuff, those have come from an amble hauntish kind of place where it's like they've obviously been there long enough and they've been haunting you long enough that you just got to do something with it eventually. You got to put it into a song. You got to write a lyric that encapsulates that emotion that you can't really put into a sentence, but a lyric set to a melody can work for it. So yeah, I think my process is a bit of every now and then like a spark of inspiration, and then a long like distillation process, and then eventually the final product is there. Sometimes forcefully, just because it's like I gotta get this ready to record next month or something like that. So yeah, my process isn't super plotted out. It's kind of more of like a like catch it as it comes kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite like place you like to record at besides being home?
Yeah, I do. I like being at home. With though this last record that we recorded, we did it the whole thing in about 17, 18 days, I think. And that didn't allow for, redoing parts a bunch or really getting too precious with the material, which I think was really good. And at the end of that recording process, I remember Nathan, who was producing us at the time, said, how do you like having somebody else run the session? And I was like, I really like it because it allows me to just focus on performance and not worry about, is the mic level right? Is the mic position right? There's so many questions that come into the recording process. So honestly, like at this moment right now, my favorite place to record was where we made that record, which is in South Carolina, in Charleston, South Carolina, just in a kind of a makeshift studio above a guy's garage. It was called Remy Lou's, and that place. And if I could go back there and just make more music, I would be very happy right now. But I know that there's tons of other places out there like that have the same environment. And really, what I'm saying is that it's kind of about the people that you're recording with.
Yeah.
I think I learned through recording our first EP by myself that like sometimes being alone with your thoughts in those moments is not beneficial to the process. You think it is, like there's this romanticized idea that like musicians have to struggle to make the song and that's what makes it good. And I'm starting to think like it's not that. It's about, being intentional, being with the right people and just getting the environment around you in the right place and then just attacking it and doing it.
That sounds like an interesting thing because when I recorded my first full length album, mostly it took me forever to get it all done. Because I do remember doing it out of my friend's bedroom at college. And first it was an EP and then it took a long time for the full length to all come together, taking the original ones and putting the newer ones in. But I mean, when I write a song, it takes forever to write because it's just too. I don't know. It's just hard, I guess. Not a lot of things come in
It's
my
hard.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's very hard, especially when we're at all self-critical with ourselves about it. That's where it gets really hard, where we have the thought of like, oh, I could make this better. You have to know, as easy it is to have that thought, you also have to know where to cut it off and just say it's done.
Yeah. Well, I'm very excited for the benefit concert.
Yeah, it's August 27th, right?
August 29th.
9th. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm still waiting on one more band, and that's about it.
Cool. Yeah, mini bar is that still where we're talking about going? Mini bar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a fun spot. It's a nice little like we were there in February and it just feels like a good rock club. There's not many of those left around, but that
No.
mini bar still has that feeling of like a rock club.
Well, that's cool. I can't wait. I've never been, so I'm very excited to
Yeah,
check it out.
yeah. And you said you're doing it in support of Midwest Music Foundation?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, we know them. We've done a few of their other benefits and stuff. I think they're a fantastic organization. My friend who I was talking about that had the car accident and the spinal injury got benefit from them, and it was much needed at that time.
Well, that's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just trying to find the right charity to work with because I don't know so many out here in Kansas City. So I was like, oh, well,
Hmm.
maybe I should ask somebody on Facebook and see what's the best one to go for.
Hmm. Yep. They're a very respectable organization in my eyes.
And that's what I kind of wanted to do, because that's when I noticed it. And I said, "Oh, I was looking for it." But it was then I was searching for it, and I couldn't. Oh, what happened? The audio, I
Mhm.
guess.
Hmm.
Um, but um, yeah, I'm just so excited.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be fun. And I think, fingers crossed, at that time we'll have our vinyl records in hand. This is the first time that we've cut a vinyl record.
What's the process of getting a vinyl record?
It is much harder than I knew it was going to be hard going into it, but it is a lot. It's designing it in the first place, even having the idea for the cover and the back and your color design and all that kind of stuff. And then I didn't know this until just recently. Your music has to be mastered in a certain way to be ready for vinyl, because vinyl doesn't do good with like low frequencies and stuff like that. So you have to kind of shape the low end, the bass elements a bit more. Um, Certain levels of loudness just they're too loud for vinyl stuff. So there's this like sweet area where the mix and the EP or the EQ have to sit. So then you have, you design it, you mix it for the vinyl, then you find a place to press it. And a lot of them are like a 6 to 10 week turnaround. It takes a long time. Um, and another thing that I discovered in the process is, you have to be very conscious of how much music you're putting on each side of it. There's limits to how much sound can physically fit onto that vinyl disc. So
Mm.
you have to really shape your track listing in a way that allows you to make a B side, for that vinyl. Once you have all those things figured out and you've found a place to work with and you've figured out your budget, because it is not a cheap endeavor, even for 100 discs, it can be quite a bit. Um, then what I'm actually in the process of doing right now is just kind of going back and forth with them and making sure every box is checked. We've given approval on the print design, even though we designed it. You give it to them, they give it back to you and say, "Is this how it's supposed to look?" You say, "Yeah, that's how it's supposed to look." And eventually you get a test pressing in the mail and you listen to that and think, "Is this how it's supposed to sound? Is it distorting?" Sometimes what I was talking about, the loudness, if it gets too loud, the record needle will literally just jump out of the groove. So yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. The process is involved. I'll just put it that way. You have to be ready to get in there and learn some stuff that you probably don't already know.
That's good to know. If I ever
Yeah,
put a thing in there.
yeah. This putting an entire album on vinyl has made me think. Next time I go to press vinyl, I might want to do like a 7 inch. Like just a single or a 2 song kind of thing or something like that. But I am extremely excited for this. We've never pressed our stuff on vinyl. It's always only been CDs or digital release, and this will be the first time that we have that full-fledged vinyl to hold.
So, so you've been just doing it on CD?
Up till now, yeah. I mean, in just the various releases that we've done over the last 20 years of playing music stuff, as far as our bands, Brandon and I, uh, it's always just, yeah, been, get it onto iTunes, get it on Spotify, make a CD of it. You never sell all the CDs, of even all the CDs
Yeah.
we've ever pressed. I still have copies of them. So we're hoping that the vinyl thing is just a bit more enticing to folks, even if they don't plan on going home and like putting it right on and listening to the music that way. It's an art piece. It's something big and physical, and you can really put it up on a shelf and use it as art if you want.
Mm.
And who knows? Maybe someone will do that. I am actually pretty happy with our album cover. I think it has a nice appeal to it and looks cool. So I heard, I heard something just the other day. I can't even remember who said it, but that vinyl records can be the poor man's art collection, whereas a millionaire goes and collects paintings and things like that. Vinyl records are the poor man's version of that. You can go out and you can collect them. You can have stacks of them and show people your collection. And every now and then, maybe you have a valuable one that actually is worth some money or something. But vinyl and gives an art form. The layout, the process of making it, the messaging that you put in the artwork that you're showing people.
Now, about the vinyl. So is this like this is something new to use getting one, right?
Yeah, we've never pressed any of our music onto vinyl before. I have vinyls upstairs, but yeah, I've never had my own music on a vinyl.
Who comes up with the creation of the like the design artwork?
I did it. I work in video production as my day job, so it's a visual medium, and I understand enough about Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator and stuff like that to get in those programs and create the artwork. And sometimes that's like a bolt of lightning moment, and the idea is just there, and you just make it, and it looks great. And then there's other times where it's a bit of like a tug of war with yourself of, is it this, is it that, which one like is cooler, which one do I like? So this one was kind of a challenge. There were a few elements that as soon as I saw them, I knew that was the direction to go. But a lot of it was, I think before I decided on the cover, I think I made 10 or 12 different mock-ups of what it could look like. And then I finally landed on one image.
That's cool. That's cool. I mean, sometimes it's hard to find somebody that has some good artwork for your CD covers or your wherever you're looking for.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a part of me that feels a little like ashamed to even admit it, but it's like, I utilized stock services. I have a few, because of my video production business, I have a few subscriptions to some stock services that give full commercial rights to whatever you find on there. And so I found a lot of things, and I kind of like compiled them into the artwork for the record, like a still image from this site, a couple different layers of images from over here, and then a bit of, just knowing some graphic design elements as far as how to put text on that and how to make that text legible and look decent and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, I use Canvas, so I mean that has some good things to it and some free elements.
Yeah.
So, but I used to normally ask somebody, a friend of mine that made the full length album CD covers. So I said, "Oh, let's do that and see how that comes out." Everybody loves it. So
yeah, it's pretty cool seeing your creation go out into the world. I mean, for me, there's not much better in life than that process of knowing that the thing that you made was not there before you made it, and it wouldn't be there unless you made it, and you made it, and it's out there for other people to experience now.
Yeah. Did you ever get worried about getting your music out there?
It's a constant worry, or at least, I mean, my perspective of it is like still this, does anyone really care that I put it out? There's always that feeling. And am I just kind of, as they say, screaming into the void, where it's like I've put all this effort and all this hope into my thing, and no one's really going to pick it up or listen to it? Yeah, it's always intimidating to do, but I think it's always really rewarding once you do it. And then if by some miracle, like honestly, getting to know you, getting in touch with us and wanting to talk like this and everything. It's like, okay, there are people out there who pay attention when you put out an effort.
Yeah. Well, I try my best getting people to listen to me
I
and doing
I mean,
these
I think the
interviews.
kind of stuff the kind of effort that you put forward, I don't know how to phrase it exactly, like on other people's behalf, like you're helping promote other people's careers. That's incredible, and it's really valuable to people in our world. And I hope people tell you that.
Well, some people do. Not a lot of people,
Yeah,
but some people.
yeah.
I mean, there's musicians that I've been friends with from Los Angeles that came out to see me when I was living in Delaware at the time. So, I mean,
Hmm.
now that I'm back in Kansas City, it's you don't see that that often. So,
Hmm.
I mean, but um, it's totally fine. But I'm very excited. I'm very excited. I'm very excited for this from next weekend because uh, Alex Johnson is coming to town, so I'm gonna go to see her
Oh,
concerts um,
nice.
on Tuesday with my sister. So
Yeah, very cool. Yeah.
she's coming from she's coming from Canada.
Wow. I assume it's a tour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's an independent musician,
Yeah.
so I guess she's been doing it for. Well, she's also a actress too.
Hmm. Very cool.
So yeah, very exciting.
Right on. Well, speaking of music stuff, I actually do have to wrap up pretty soon because I'm heading down to the Uptown Theater to see Better Than Ezra tonight. I don't know if you know that band.
No, are they amazing?
Yeah, and they're one of those kind of legendary, like, from the 90s type bands. And they're back out there doing it again. My buddy Madison, who I was talking about earlier, knows Kevin in that band. They've done some co-writing together. So yeah, we're heading down to catch the show.
Have you before you go? Have you heard of car microwave?
I've seen the name on Instagram and everything lately. Being kind of a new project ourselves, I'm always looking at what bands are out there and what bands are doing stuff, and I've seen their name a lot. And I think I saw that you have an interview coming up, or you have done an
Yeah,
interview,
yeah,
or
yeah. I
yeah,
have an interview coming up with them. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm
yeah,
gonna see them on Tuesday too because
cool,
they're opening up out for Alex.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, tell them if they're looking for some buddy bands, think of Amble Hunt, and we could put a show together at some point.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your night to get on here and doing this interview with me.
Of course, man. And like I said, thank you for doing this, for providing an opportunity to even talk about the band. That's pretty big for me. So
Oh, you're welcome. And I'm very excited
yeah,
to have you a part of the benefit concert coming up. It's going to be
yeah,
fun.
yeah, we'll be. Yep.
All right. Well, I'll let you know when this is all up and running on Instagram and YouTube and some other
Great.
places.
Sounds good, man.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right, man. Take care.